Hello, nice to meet you.
Hello.
What brings you here today?
I guess I have some anxiety. I guess I've been taking medication for a number of years, Effexor, and over a few years we've increased it from 75 to 150 to 225, and that's the maximum. And for a long time, the 225 was sufficient. I'd take a couple at night, one at night and a couple in the morning. But my anxiety's gotten pretty difficult again, and my doctor suggested that before we try another med adjustment, I should talk to somebody.
So what are some of the symptoms that you're dealing with when it comes to your anxiety?
I get this feeling almost like I don't even know how to explain it. I feel very anxious, which I guess is obvious when you have anxiety, but I feel very anxious to the point where it feels like I absolutely cannot even get out of bed. That I feel this impending doom. And I'll have thoughts like, when my medication is working fine, I don't have these thoughts. But when my medication is not working, I start having thoughts like, well, if I hide under the table, nobody will find me, And I don't know if it reaches the point of panic attack, but I know that I know I've had panic attacks before. I get extremely nervous, a lot of foreboding thinking, I'm not sure what the term is, but, predicting the worst the future can be, not able to experience any of because the truth is by an objective standard, my life is pretty good. And I can't experience that when I'm having a lot of anxiety.
So it sounds like you feel like you can't really live your life to the fullest because of all these symptoms, because of how much it just weighs down on you. I think that because of all these symptoms and how hard it might be for you to live your regular life, the fact that you came into therapy at all is amazing. So that's already a big, good step.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It feels like I've been putting this off for a really long time, but I appreciate you saying that.
I'm glad. So when do you think that the anxiety started?
Well, I know that I had anxiety in middle school and high school. At the time, I didn't recognize that that's what it was, but looking back, I mean, it's really obvious to see that I was reacting to a lot of anxiety-provoking things that were stimulating me, and not a lot of risk-taking behaviors, no real drugs or anything like that, but just always on edge, didn't sleep very much. But I've even gone back and wondered if, when I think about myself as a little kid, that I wonder, I think about myself like crying the first day of school every year until like 5th or 6th grade. And that seems like not something that would be normal. No, I don't, maybe everybody was doing that, but I don't remember that. So maybe even my entire life.
So you kind of noticed when you were younger, you had these kind of abnormal behaviors and reactions that.
Well, no, I didn't notice that when I was younger. I mean, now looking back, at the time, I think when I was like say when I was in high school, I I would kind of classify the behaviors as like being cocky or I'm not going to put up with anything. But looking back now, from the perspective of looking back in high school was 30 years ago, I can see, oh, okay, so when I was doing those things, I was actually having a lot of anxiety. So more as an adult, like looking back, it became more clear.
Okay. So when you were younger, you didn't notice, but now it's very obvious.
Yeah.
Obvious to see the signs. Okay. So earlier we were talking about different things that kind of would provoke your anxiety. Do you mind sharing any of those?
Like things that provoke them now?
Well then, now, it doesn't really matter.
Well, I think that actually, I think this is probably pretty stable. The single thing that provokes me the most is when I have the sense that things aren't going to work out right. And that I really desire, and maybe everybody does. Everybody says everybody hates change, right? So, I desire things to be stable. I desire them to be normal. And, you know what? I did forget one symptom that I deal with now. You had asked about symptoms, and now that I've said that is, that probably my biggest symptom is that when I'm anxious, I tend to overeat. To the point where when things are pretty good, I like to eat, and I've often wished I was one of those people who, when I got anxious or depressed, I would stop eating. It would be amazing. I tend to kind of be the other way. But when I'm experiencing a lot of anxiety, my food choices get worse, and I go into really mindless, like, binging, as a way to just try to cope with this. And so that's actually something now, as you talk about triggers, that, if I have something that triggers me today, sometimes I won't even realize how anxious I am until, and this sounds crazy, but I'll realize, oh shit, I'm eating a hot fudge sundae from Dairy Queen, and I wasn't even hungry. Oh, I must be really anxious. And then I'll think about, something that was, it's very easy for me to pinpoint though what upsets me. Things that upset me are things like negative comments by people at work. And not even like, it doesn't have to be like I did something terrible. Just, I started a new job over the summer, and we fill out these forms that have a time on them, and I was putting, like, for 9 o'clock, I'd put 9:00, and then you put dash 10:30, 10:30, okay, and I just got this really nice note from my supervisor saying, hey, don't forget to put the AM or PM. Like the most benign thing you could think of. Like that should not cause anybody anything. Mm-hmm. And it was very overwhelming. I started immediately creating a worst case scenario that they were angry that I had not put this AM and PM, and that this was going to be the thing that, began to collapse, that would end up me being, what is it? So fired, and therefore broke and homeless and alone. Mm-hmm. So like I said, it really spirals.
I think it's great that you're able to recognize your symptoms and your coping mechanisms that you use, even if you don't necessarily really like them and they're not the healthiest. The fact that you've found something that you feel kind of works is good.
Well, it works in the sense that I appreciate what you're saying, because it does work in that when I'm having an emotion, it does get me through the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, it's not a healthy way. It's not something that, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I could eat anything I wanted, and it didn't really matter. But something happened when I turned 40, and I was always bigger, but something happened when I turned 40 and I suddenly became really fat. So, and with that, my blood pressure went up, and, so, I'm starting to have, and I think that's part of why my doctor wanted me to come in, is because I am having these negative outcomes that for many years didn't. I mean, when I was a teenager, I could eat anything I wanted and I was still skinny, I'd go play basketball for 3 hours and then eat as much Taco Bell as I could and then go play basketball for another 3 hours. It was all good. So, no, you're right though. I mean, they do work in the sense that I survive through the moment.
And the fact that you realize it's not healthy and that you clearly want to find something else works better for you, both mentally and physically wise. I think that's great. Because most people don't have any sort of coping mechanism, or they will go to like self-harm. So I think it's great. So was there
Do you think that people are self-harming because they feel like they don't have any other options?
Yeah, lots of people, when they self-harm, they feel like it's kind of an escape.
Okay.
Like a release of some
Sounds
kind.
like a terrible escape.
It is. So it's very good that you don't do that. Obviously.
Although, I mean, I guess, I have thought about that maybe the overeating is maybe a way of punishing myself. Because the truth is, I don't want to be big like this. And I know I've watched 5,000 episodes of 600-pound life. I know there are many people who are much bigger. But this is the biggest I've ever been. And I don't enjoy it.
Mm. The fact that you really want to make that change to not be worse, to get better, that's great. So, when would you say that you started overeating to kind of cope with everything?
When or why?
Yeah, when and why?
Well, this is where, I mean, I don't want to be the guy who goes in and blames everything on his parents, but my dad did a lot of very negative things when it came to food with me and my brothers and sisters. And I remember we had a big freezer, okay? And the freezer remained locked, and on the one side of the freezer there was all this junk food. Like, I don't know why that much, but so much junk food. And me and my brothers, and I didn't realize until we were adults that I thought I was the only one doing this, But, we would plot and plan and find out where the key was kept and sneak in and actually in a more, to get the junk food. And then my dad had this really weird thing where, this seems very unhealthy, where he would weigh me, and it's not like he had some kind of like chart from a doctor, but if he felt like I should weigh, arbitrarily pick 75 pounds, if I weighed 77 pounds, then I was only allowed to eat lettuce with vinegar. And that's it. But then at the same time, he would take us to, we didn't have Ponderosas. We had a restaurant called Bonanza, which is kind of the same thing, a buffet, or we'd go to a pizza buffet, always buffets, and you would be, rewarded for gorging yourself and punished for not eating enough, and they take us at 11 in the morning and say, now this is the only food you're getting today. And so, you just pack it away, pack it away, pack it away. So there was these really mixed signals of, your weight makes you bad, and yet eat super unhealthy. And there was neither of my parents knew anything about healthy eating. So our meals were never nutritious. If they were nutritious, it was completely by accident. I mean, my mom would make scones, and I don't know how other people make scones, but the way she made them is she would put together this bread dough and, roll them in, slap them into a patty and then deep fry them. And oh my God, they were amazing. But I mean, then we'd put jelly on it and we put butter on it, probably a little powdered sugar on it. And so each one would be 1,000 calories, and, you'd eat as many as you possibly could. So, things like that weren't a treat. Things like that were just how we ate every day. So like I said, it was really, so I think that's the win of, when the food issue started and the why. I mean, I don't want to blame my dad. I'm an adult. I've been on my own for 25 years, at least 25 years. I certainly should be in control of what I eat. That being said, when I am experiencing anxiety, it is so bad and so overwhelming that I just want the feeling to stop.
So basically food feels like you're only out at the moment, kind of.
Well,
in a way.
I don't cheat on my wife, and I don't do drugs, and I don't drink, and I don't smoke, and I don't gamble. So, maybe food is my one vice. Or maybe it's the other thing I do is I say I spend money, but I really spend money on food. I mean, and it seems to me like on the surface that seems so stupid. I'm a fairly smart guy. I have a couple graduate degrees. I'm well spoken. I have a terrific wife, great family. To have this area of my life so out of control, and again, then to have this anxiety, which at times feels crippling, I feel helpless.
So because of your past and with your parents, do you still hold, and them doing all those things to you, do you still have a good relationship with them? Or have you ever?
Oh, well, my dad and I are reasonably close. He's in his 70s now, and I remember being a little boy, and he would kick a football, and he could kick that football so high that I thought he should play in the NFL. Like, he was amazing. And like the last time I was at his house, he had shoulder surgery, and I had to help him carry a box of pillows, and so he's in his 70s and he's really aged. He's not ready for the nursing home, but I mean, he's old. And so it's hard to look at somebody who's that age. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I love him and I care about him, and we communicate fairly regularly. He lives in Colorado, but we speak at least once every couple weeks minimum. He knows about what's going on with my kids, I think there was a time in my life where I thought my dad was my best friend. I don't think now he would be in my top 25 friends. I think if he knew that would hurt his feelings. So this is confidential, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And my mom, there's just no way to have a relationship with her. When I was a little boy, I was a lot closer to my mom. And my parents got divorced when I was 14, and like I know that happens to everybody. Well, not everybody, but I mean, I think the divorce rate's like 50%, right? So I mean, it's very common. Lots of kids go through it. But for some reason, when my mom left my dad, she felt like she had to leave us kids as well. So it was really like more of like a macro rejection. She wasn't just rejecting my dad, because the truth is my parents hated each other. They should have gotten divorced. I mean, at the time I was sad. No kid wants their parents to get divorced. But I mean, looking back now, 3 decades later, I mean, it's very easy to see, oh, okay, yeah, they absolutely were not good for each other. So now I get these really weird letters from her once or twice a year, where she will write, like in the same letter, I remember when you were a little boy and how much I loved you, and you're always going to be my little boy, and you're a rotten bastard who doesn't do the things that you need to do for me, and I never want to speak to you again. So it's really weird. She's been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And so, I mean, I know that's consistent with that diagnosis. And like, if it was somebody else's mom, I could look at that and say, oh, that's really interesting. But when it's your mom, it's incredibly painful. My wife actually screens any letters I get from her. I have not actually spoken to my mother in almost a decade. Because every time I think about it, because no matter what our parents are like, we yearn to be with them. Every time I think about contacting her, it's just not emotionally safe for me. And I feel the need to kind of protect my kids from that level of crazy. My dad's married to a really nice lady. She fills the role of grandma pretty well. So
it seems like your parents have always been the kind of person who would send a lot of mixed signals, with food,
I would say that's right
their
on.
Emotions.
Yes, I would say that's true.
Overall, so I imagine that probably very much caused your anxiety, or at least made it a million times worse. Just the whole concept of, you're doing that wrong. Well, no, you're doing that wrong now. No, you're doing that wrong.
Maybe. I don't know.
So with your siblings, are you close to them?
I don't know. I have contact with all of them. I have three siblings. I was the oldest growing up. Mm-hmm. I have contact with all of them. I don't consider any of them to be friends, but I like them. I like them, at least some. In a lot of ways, it's the same kind of caretaker role that when my parents were freaking out and acting stupid, I was the oldest kid, and I was trying to take care of my brothers and sisters, and they really rejected that. They were old enough. This isn't a situation where they were little and I was feeding them dinner. I mean, they were teenagers. I was a teenager. They were teenagers or almost teenagers, and they wanted to go out and run the streets. And so I'd say no, we can't do that. You guys need to stay home. And they'd give me the middle finger and leave. So in a lot of ways, the relationship it's not like that anymore, but it's still, I'm taking care of them, or I'm looking out for them. But we're not friends.
All right. It seems like that comes with a lot of, it seems like, again, they're kind of sending mixed signals of, they accept your help. They know that you're trying just to help, and they're still pushing you away. They're still saying, no, I don't want that. Or they just won't recognize it. So it seems like that's just a big thing is a lot of people in your family just send a lot of mixed signals.
Well, and I know we're running out of time now, but you say that, and I think about not my current boss, who's awesome, but I was at my last job for 7 years, and that boss for all 7 years would have days where she was so great, and days where she was very emotionally abusive. And it's funny, and I see, I don't know how much time we have, but so I worry that we're running out, but maybe that's a little bit of my anxiety there. But I actually remember one night laying in bed and having the thought that Terry is not my mother. Like, Steve, Terry's not your mom. Not like I was thinking like she might be like my mother, but like her and I don't have that relationship. Mm-hmm. She's not actually that important to me. She doesn't really matter. And getting away from her, and again, on some level, I really liked her, but getting away from her has been amazing. So, all right. Well, that certainly gives me something to think about.
All right. Well, I hope you enjoyed this session. I hope you'll think about coming back next time for a second session.
Well, yeah. I mean, I want to. How often would we do these?
About once a week.
Once a week?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.